This is Tracy Swedlow, and welcome to Televisionation. I'm so glad you're here. We have the wonderful Rob Gabel from Tubular, who is the CEO and co-founder of Tubular. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm so fascinated. I've always been fascinated with what Tubular is capable of doing from the day one that you launched back in 2012, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And just the idea of being able to track all of the social media. But before we get into that, how are you doing? Are you guys okay? I'm assuming you are. You look happy.
Yeah. Fortunately, I personally, myself, my family, my parents, my in-laws, everyone's safe. So that's good. And I've had 40, 50 straight dinners with my family, and have enjoyed a little bit not traveling around the world. And so there have been some good things to come of that. And then at the company, we had a couple early cases where a couple of our employees came down with COVID as well as their parents, but they've all actually recovered. And so we're very thankful for that.
My family yesterday asked me if I knew anybody who had it. And I've only known people really in the industry, but that's because they're in sort of centers where it's hot, like New York.
Right. Our employees one was in London, one was in New York.
Well, I'm glad that your family and friends are good. And,
thank you. You're well as well.
So let's talk about what is happening. Tubular is tracking hundreds of millions of videos, or billions, 5 billion videos. Here are my statistics. 400 million video consumers, 13 million creators, 150,000 brands, and 850,000 sponsored videos.
It's a lot of numbers, but it's a lot of numbers. Our mission since we got started was 2010, I was working at Machinima, and I became aware of this entire ecosystem of short form video, whether the influencers making it or brands, Jimmy Fallon, Ellen DeGeneres, 10 years ago, they were putting their videos out on YouTube being watched by tens of millions of people. And, the legacy measurement systems that would tell you what the world is watching really weren't measuring these. It's hard. The scale is big. It's global. It's not country specific. And so Tubular was actually organized out of a need I had at Machinima. What are people consuming on social video and digital video? And so our mission is really to help understand what the world is watching in a time where now audiences are global. There are very large media companies that are one or two people operating out of their bedroom, but there are also, companies like Disney or Viacom or the BBC, which now have a global video presence through these platforms as well. And the problem is that, there are not 1,000 or 2,000 shows to rate in every market. There are 3 million new videos every single day. So yeah, we provide ratings in a standardized context so we can all understand, what our audience is watching so we can be part of the conversation.
So what is social media telling you? Are you tracking all of this in terms of archiving it for future historians? I guess those are two questions in one. What is surprising you right now? Maybe answer that first, and then tell me if you're putting this aside for historians. I'd be curious.
Sure. Yeah, I think one thing we've always done is we find all of the public videos, not the videos you and I are sharing on Facebook with just our friends, but videos that are public from public figures is what we will be, whether you're a brand, a media company, or an individual. We are measuring, or videos that go viral that are made public. We're measuring those. We are recording those. Most of them are staying up on the platforms. A few of them are being taken down these days. And so, yeah, there'll be a historical record of, what the world is watching and how behaviors changed through, COVID, and maybe who winners and losers were in terms of, getting audiences and engaging audiences in these times. So that always will be around. And yeah, the Tubular platform today goes back to, I think over 10 years in terms of some of the videos that are available. The creator trends usually go back about 3 or 4 years, but it's all there historically.
I know from looking through your the reports that Zach sent me, thanks Zach, that influencers are as strong as media companies in terms of generating viewership. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Obviously they're in a position to be flexible, they're nimble, they are already used to talking to the camera and to the Cyclops. And can you tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of the strength of the influencers, the strength of what they're able to do?
Sure. That's what's fascinating about, to me, social video, online video, is that it is a flat world. And so everyone is now a creator, and influencers, which we'll talk about, sports teams, sports leagues, radio stations. I've been watching a lot of, even magazines, Rolling Stone. I've been watching some pandemic shut-in, concerts, what that Rolling Stone is putting out. So it's a very competitive, hyper flat world, but the benefit is everyone can tell their stories. I do think to some extent with the shut-in of live video production that happened after COVID, the traditional YouTuber, and now they're on many platforms, at home in their studio, certainly had a bit of a advantage in that, their workflow wasn't really disrupted, right? In terms of reaching out to their audiences. It was very clear by the massive success of, for example, the late night hosts when they all started filming from home, that people really wanted, personal connections while you're shut in, and they're looking to, people they trust that they value, like an Ellen DeGeneres or Jimmy Fallon or whoever it is, and being brought inside their home was something that I think provided a lot of value during the early days of the shut-in. But it's interesting. It's not just YouTubers. Stephen Van Pelt from ESPN, when he renegotiated his last deal, they recreated his studio in his basement. So his ESPN TV show, has been shot from his basement for the last couple of years. So it is definitely a changing world, and it's not just Zoom, but these sort of studio level, studio quality shows. It has been interesting, but the most of those late night hosts, their views per video were up. We call it V7 views in the first 7 days. They were up, 3, 4, 5-fold when they shut in, and I think that shows that it's compelling TV, even if it didn't have the top-notch production quality that you might, associate.
I know you're not necessarily a strategist, but I mean, doesn't that say like maybe they shouldn't ever go back to a live studio? I mean, I'm sure that'll drive them crazy because they love performing in front of an audience that's applauding, but that's a lot of extra traffic. That's a lot of extra advertising revenue.
It's very interesting, right? I mean, the question is how much of that is the Hawthorne effect, a one-time spike, and maybe initially it's just interesting to see that Jimmy Fallon has a slide in his house and his kids are coming down and making art. Does that still hold a year or 2 or 3 years later? But you're watching
his kids grow up though with him, maybe.
Right. What I think will happen is it's an and. I think that just like the rise of TV and VHS tapes didn't take the movies away, it's this combination of tentpole events, lots of theater, a special event, maybe live, you get to go see Saturday Night Live, but that brought into your home as well, right? Incrementally, the authenticity you get by bringing people into your home. So I don't think that will go away. I'm not exactly sure if it will branch off, into sort of a spin-off, or how that will work. But I think especially these musicians that are doing these intimate concerts from home, I don't think that will stop. I think that it will be another tool. I think what everyone's realizing is that you don't have to have the highest production quality to connect with audiences. But again, YouTubers figured that out in 2008, right? So, but it was forced upon us, and we're learning as we go.
So tell me a little bit about how your clients are accessing the content, the data, and what they're learning and what they're talking to you about, how they want to change and tweak what they're doing. Give me the sense of what are some of the inside conversations.
Yeah, so we have about 250 customers all throughout the globe, 30 or 40 different countries, from South America to Asia to Europe and to, of course, the United States. About 70% of them are media companies and 9 of the top 10, but we also have brands that are seeking to engage authentically on these platforms with often younger audiences. So whether that's EA or Activision or Hasbro or Mattel or Adidas. And then we have some brands that are looking to work through influencers like a Squarespace or an Audible as well. So how are they using Tubular? One, in a changing time, sometimes things change on social platforms because they change algorithms, not because of a worldwide event. But when there is a quick event, what's helpful within Tubular is to understand how your share of voice is changing, right? Whether it's you and your competitive set of 10 or 20 companies, or whether it's your share of cooking, or your share of political news, or whether it's your share of combat sports, if you're an MMA league, for example. So one, how is the market changing? Is there a change in the growth? Is the audience grow? Did it shut? down. I think people were a little surprised to see that sports viewership on social stayed flat through all of this, despite the fact that games went away, right? That maybe is not intuitive. It rose dramatically in news, which is intuitive, but then are you gaining your fair share? Did a competitor jump out in front of you? Or is there an influencer that somehow is now, getting a lot of views to the typical audience? So your share of voice, your share of your category, how's that changing over time is sort of step one. Step two would then be to understand what are people talking about. And that's important whether you're in sales, because selling is hard now, right? There are fewer ad dollars out there. So many of our customers who are in sales, to be able to talk about your leadership or your leadership in a niche is important, and programming teams as well. Just like TV ratings were used to sort of decide if a show's a hit and understand if it's fading in its time slot, and used to sell ads. It's the same with what we do. But I think initially they jumped in to understand coronavirus content. Just what is it? Is it hand washing? Is it news? Is it protests? And we put out a couple of reports about that. But even in South America, Globo was looking at our data and trying to understand how to best intersect in with the coronavirus content. And then people, whether they were like in health or sports or fitness, were looking at the intersection of those to generate programming ideas. Then it moved. There are sports networks and sports teams that, with the games down, wanted to understand how, what kind of content is resonating. Is it NFL draft? Is it, and it turned out they were just a lot of sort of feel-good sports-related stories. What might be a athlete helping out people, in coronavirus, or donating masks, and those kinds of stories, and some UGC was really going viral. And in fact, you see now, I think SportsCenter, the top 10 plays of the day, because there aren't many plays, it's actually sponsored by Facebook and Instagram, and it's sort of UGC and sports content or stunts or trick shots that are kind of going, viral now, instead of the center fielder catching, a diving catch.
Like what they're doing in their backyard or something with some friends or family?
Yeah, exactly. Trick shots and those kind of dude perfects have always been a bit of a thing. And so those are some of the type sports fans will kind of get their fill however they can get it.
Well, you said earlier that people were interested in COVID content in the very beginning, but now patterns are starting to normalize. Can you tell me about that? I mean, what do you mean by normalize? So do you mean, going back to the late night show hosts, or go to regular shows or streaming, or, what is spiking versus sort of
right? So what
trends?
we saw spike in the early days was certainly news content. I think viewership grew about 60-80%. It's just kind of falling off. It's still above normal. Video gaming content spiked, maybe not as much as people would have thought, but that's still a very healthy category. It was up 20 or 30%. The coronavirus itself topic spiked. Anything related to home workouts, home cooking recipes, they spiked, and the spike is just kind of slowly reverting to the normal. But I think those categories are still elevated. And that's a little bit of what we're seeing today. We did also see a shift to longer view times and a higher percentage of people watching longer content on all the social platforms. That's kind of stayed with us. I don't think that we've seen that shrink so far. So people were home. They were consuming more TV. TV ratings went up. Social video viewership went up. I think now it's sort of kind of finding its new normal again.
What about political news? We're getting closer to some kind of an election. So how are the alternative voices doing? How are the news, how's news coverage among politics doing?
So this was fascinating. During the coronavirus, mid-March to, let's say, mid-April, the election coverage dramatically dropped, or in terms of viewership to the election coverage. So when you look at our U.S. election, viewing dashboards, it dropped, and because people tuned, nobody really wanted to hear about it. The debates weren't happening, and it became more about the coronavirus. So that's starting to come back. There's a little bit more talk about the election, and but at this point, still, the conventions are uncertain when they're going to happen, or how they're going to be. Well, we see, on the YouTube, a lot of the top news creators, and we consider a creator anyone who creates content, whether you're a brand, an influencer, or a media company, they're the broadcasters. They're the Fox News, the CNN, the MSNBCs. it's over on Instagram and Twitter where some of the larger viewed creators are influencers, individuals. On Twitter, there are congressmen that actually have quite a bit of viewership there. On Instagram, a little bit more of the pundits, some of those type of you'd consider them a blogger type. White House viewership as well. And then on Facebook, it's actually a bit of a mix of everything.
There's been some complaining, right, about the candidates don't seem to have control of the live streaming technologies available to them. They aren't exploiting YouTube very well. They aren't exploiting the high quality streams that can be produced. I mean, I don't know if you're tracking any of this, but if you're seeing them embracing live streaming more or doing better, are you able to sort of watch all of that? Because I think that's sort of a question about everything. Like, is live streaming becoming a bigger category?
Yeah, live streaming. We put out a report on live streaming. I think live streaming audience was up about 135%. When you look at sort of March 2020 over February 2020 or a year ago. So that is a bigger category, coming off a smaller level. Gaming is still a big part of it, actually. But yeah, the news and the politics are growing as well. I do think it is interesting that obviously Donald Trump used social media incredibly well and always has. But we're seeing today a lot of ER doctors from Bakersfield videos going viral, and this doctor talking about it, and they range from very factual to conspiracy theory. But those sort of tend to be sort of bubbling out of the UGC, ecosystem, as well as the regular, dependable people that you listen to. And so, everyone has a voice, for good or for bad, and the audiences kind of vote and share, on social with what gets shared. And it's, to some extent, the platforms. It's great when it's healthy, and if it's complete misinformation, they're trying to get involved. So there are a whole bunch of. So we do measure all of it, and it's a big, complicated world. It requires a lot of technology, and to sort through.
Would you say that the kids, right, who have a lot of free time, unless they're in doing Google Classroom or whatever they're doing, I'm assuming you're watching that category, right? The plurals, the Generation Z. What are they watching? Is that something that you have at your disposal?
Right. We put out a report on kids, and then for anyone who wants, there's a bunch of free reports on Tubular Labs. Not a plug, but they're all free. There's kids, there's news, there's sports, there's live streaming. So when it comes to kids. Originally during the breakout, coronavirus content was popular, but a lot of hand washing videos, infotainment, if you will, edutainment, sometimes it's called, and a lot of a lot of the viewership came from library content. So that's actually quite fascinating. Is that especially on YouTube, but actually on all of the platforms, older content continues to be watched year after year after year after year after year. And so it's a little hard to suddenly insert yourself and suddenly decide that you want to get involved with this because this library content does so well. So I think within kids, something like 70% of the views are to videos that are over a year old. And so that's, but those were parents pulling up, educational or content like that. But we did see a lot of new content as it relates to sort of the intersection of what's topical, in this case, COVID. But sometimes, there's kids' content that gets around global warming and other types of themes the parents are interested in, pop as well.
The reason I ask is because I have a 12-year-old, so I'm curious what she wants to watch. And other than watching, regular entertainment programming, she's taken to Brightside, a brand called Brightside, and they do educational and tests. And how's your visual? How are you able to see colors or riddles? She's sort of moving in that direction. So she's watching, archived legacy content or archived evergreen content. And I just thought I'd mention that. I don't know if that's just an age thing. I
have some slides I can pull up of evergreen content.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at this.
Do you also track whether things are monetizing through donations, or maybe only YouTube can track that? I don't know if they really give you that kind of data, or cards or super chat. You're not able to track any of that.
No.
They don't give that away.
Almost like just, what you would think of TV. broadcast type media published to everybody, you know, consumed. We do get information about how people are reacting in comments, but we don't really have the sort of, let's call it one-to-one, you know, chat type content.
Okay. Do you have something you want to bring up?
Yeah, let me see here.
Okay. I'll just do this so I know to cut this part out of the recording.
All right, yeah.
Okay, just so I know it's coming.
Okay, I can share. This actually is going to go over a couple things we just talked about. So one of the things that happened was that live studio production got shut down, and many of our customers, you know, wondered, what do we do right now? And obviously, that we know in retrospect that the late night hosts, you know, they started filming from home. People are turning to evergreen footage. Are there older episodes that I can, you know, access or put clip shows together, or is it the top 8, you know, fight scenes from the History Channel Viking show or those types of things? So one of our report here, you know, closed production studios. One of the things in our recommendation was take the influencer approach. Entertainment influencers, for example, were able to kind of benefit faster than media companies. So in the first break of the, this is within the entertainment category. This is not sports, not cooking, not news, but just within general entertainment. You know, influencer views grew faster than media companies as they were able to kind of pivot to it. And, you know, we just talked about the home edition from Jimmy Fallon. You know, his viewership, in terms of views per video in the first 7 days was up 150%. It's been fun to watch the evolution of this. Saturday Night Live over the weekend just, you know, wrapped their whole season remotely. Jimmy Kimmel
Are
also.
Are they still growing? Are they still, sorry I interrupted, but are they still accelerating their views?
I'll have to pull the latest data for you on that, and I can get back to you, Tracy. I haven't looked in the last couple of weeks. That's why things are changing so quickly. Yeah, and virtually hosting you know, James Corden was virtually hosting concerts, and again, you know, just a big improvement in the views. Sorry.
His video with Nancy Pelosi went pretty viral.
Right. And then live streaming. We were just talking about live streaming. So this isn't sports live streaming. This isn't news live streaming. This is just, you know, media, entertainment type thing, live streaming. I did see media companies here. While it was a lot smaller, minutes watched on YouTube of live streaming, it grew 66% during the first few weeks of the pandemic. And evergreen content was getting repurposed. I did a video podcast of sorts with Fremantle, you know, and they talked about how they've been repurposing Got Talent, Arabs Got Talent, America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent into these Facebook watch shows of Magician's Got Talent, Animals Got Talent, right? So there's a way to stay fresh. And I think we saw that 66% of the entertainment content watched after the outbreak was at least a year old. So you can see that, you know, it's still alive, and there's two things that are happening. This is the videos that were actually published years ago, but then people are also going back and reclipping or repurposing older content as well. So those are a few of the trends that we were seeing.
Are you watching as a sort of category these group live streams where they feature the musicians or the symphonies or the John Krasinski, Some Good News, brings all his famous friends, you know, or there was a comedy show, I guess, that's going to be broadcast soon of all these famous comedians. Are you watching that as a genre to see whether they're growing in traffic? It's a short trend. It's a sort of instant spike, and then nobody ever watches it again. I mean, what do you think about that type of a format, that new type of format?
That's great. You know, in December, Tubular rolled out a new set of AI-driven classifications and categories and topics, a taxonomy. It's in English language right now, but videos throughout the world, and on Facebook and YouTube and soon Instagram, being able to understand what people are watching in terms of what kind of animal content. Do snake videos perform better? It turns out turtle videos actually perform really well for some reason. You know, within news, what beauty is it? Beauty pageants? Is it beauty hacks? Is it makeup? Is it skincare? And then the topics can be as granular as things like coronavirus or UFC 249, those types of things. So we've put a lot of energy into that. And when you understand what performs bigger, better, what is growing, programming strategies evolve from that. Sales, if you're the leader in that, it evolves from that. Lets you invest confidently as a brand into sponsored content or areas of content as a salesperson lets you sell into it. Formats are actually tricky. So within Tubular, formats is a little tricky. We have ways to manually use what we call Boolean searches to pull out things like these look like these are the top animated series or the top live action series. But it's kind of hard right now to train the AI into, you know, remote from home symphonic type thing. So the data's in there, the videos are in there, and we have a group called Insights and Strategy that will work with our customers to get custom looks. But right now, that type of format is actually not out of the box in the way that being able to look at all of the sports, you know, being able to understand how big is soccer versus tennis, and who has that audience, who are the influencers, who are the brands, you know, what countries, which creators, which influencers, and the breakout of Fox Sports versus ESPN by sport. So we've covered that, but the format we haven't quite covered well beyond sort of just live versus non-live so far, but we'll get there.
Are there any other innovative formats that you've seen emerge?
Well, this is related to it. There was the very big hit, notably, where the gaming influencer on YouTube had a rock, paper, scissors tournament. I don't know if you saw that, but it got millions and millions of views, raised a lot of money for charity, and it was very clever because, you know, bringing together 32 different influencers, each with their own audiences, for something that can be done remotely, rock, paper, scissors. And it was absolutely huge. It was live streamed and then watched again on demand by just, you know, absolutely millions and millions of viewers. So I think that was a very clever take on getting the people to come together, you know, while they're remote. There was also just a lot of, I don't know if you consider this a format, but there have been a lot of the sort of, you know, together at home, you know. So it would be interesting to try to classify that, especially the problem we have is there's 3 million new videos every day. So getting the machines to flag them instead of people. But yeah, you know, Parks and Rec did a remote special. Saturday Night Live has been doing remote. So collaboration remotely. We're doing a remote collaboration right now. We should be part of that category.
Well, speaking of which, are you able to track Zoom?
We don't know. Zoom is a platform because it's not public. Videos made on Zoom, such as this, posted to YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Twitch, or if this was being live streamed on Twitch or YouTube, we would be measuring that. But yeah, not Zoom as a native platform.
I knew that you were going to say that, but I just wanted to ask it just in case there was some strange collaboration between the two companies. It seems like it would be interesting. Speaking of which, you really haven't named all your customers. Can you throw out a few names of some of the big media companies that are using your platform?
Yeah, well, we work with 9 of the 10 largest global, you know, media companies. So whether that's Viacom, CBS, or NBC Universal, or, you know, A&E, or, you know, the Disney Channel. I mean, most large companies, not necessarily every group, and have had a lot of success. One of the ones that we have a case study on, our new audience ratings product, which applies people and time-based to the traditional TV metrics, unique viewers, time spent, minutes watched, in addition to the social metrics, shares, views, subscribers, right? They found that the Ellen show was viewed by advertisers as an amazing show, and Ellen is, you know, unduplicatable, a big hit with lots of advertisers and brands looking to invest, but thinking of her as a TV show with an older audience, right? Turns out that Ellen Digital, you know, reaches 1 billion views a month, and they're reaching lots of young Gen Z and millennials through Instagram and through Facebook and through YouTube, but they weren't really able to quantify it beyond views. And one of the problems that sometimes you find with brands investing is they'll say, well, views 2 seconds, is that real? You know, I don't know if I want to be integrated in that kind of content. Well, so the audience ratings product we developed with the Global Video Measurement Alliance has a view being at least 30 seconds long, so that you know that the content, you know, had an engaged view, might have started as a pre-roll, might have started as an autoplay, but, you know, engaged view. So they found that using Tubular, something like 34% of all females age 18 to 24 in the United States watched at least one Ellen Digital video for at least 30 seconds a month. So they're able to get out there and be seen as a viable candidate for maybe Noxema, you know, as a brand, that type of a thing. So many companies subscribe to the audience ratings product, which is in beta, as well as the intelligence platform, which we've offered for 6 or 7 years.
Have you ever considered partnering with an agency that manages influencers or a network or something, so that if somebody decides they want to interact with that influencer, there's sort of a platform that's ready right there and then to pop them on? I mean, I'm assuming that's where Ellen gets all her guests from, and she has all access to all this data from
Yeah.
you guys. And she brings in all these, interesting people. So, but I could totally see that a new format would be to find that influencer, contact, because of whatever data you're finding in real time while something is hot, while somebody's launched a viral video, contact them and pop them in to a live stream context. Maybe that's just not something that you
what we
think of ever
hope
doing.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that we feel the industry needs is an independent platform that organizes and provides measurement for what the world's watching. And organizing, whether it's an influencer, a media company, or a brand, organizing the genre, is it sports, get down to the topic level, and get down to things like, corona, whether it's about coronavirus or whether it's about the Video Music Awards or whether it's about the NFL draft. So we are really trying to provide one view of that, consistently organized, so that whether you're an advertiser, an agency, talent agent, or a media company, everyone gets the same view of how big late night is and what Jimmy Fallon's share is, or how big health is and what share of that is coronavirus, and what share of that might be WebMD. Whether it's, within soccer, how big is Adidas versus influencers versus soccer teams. So that's our role. We are subscribed to by all the major talent agencies, by many agencies that do work with influencers. And they use us to navigate that world and understand, who has the audience I'm interested in, by topic, or by format, or by country, or by age, and that is very valuable to be able to go find those influencers that maybe already are making content about your brand. So most of the major video gaming companies, for example, use Tubular to measure Call of Duty online, or World of Warcraft online, or Battlefield online, or Fortnite.
Can you imagine if this was opened up and democratized, like you were sort of indicating, how many connections you would make between human beings around the world? Obviously you have to make a living, but I mean, I can you imagine people doing their own research and figuring out who is interesting and who they like to partner with, and it would be explosive.
Well, we do have a free product that provides,
like a Tim Berners-Lee. Do a Tim Berners-Lee.
Yeah. Well, our free product does provide measurement ratings for the top 15 million creators that have 98% of these views. Although I got to admit, it's we've been investing more in the enterprise paid product for a while. Making those connections, I do think, is something that is quite interesting. But we do partner with people making that platform, and we've been the sort of the read measurement, read only, I suppose. But if it was read and write, or I'd like to message this person, it could be taken that direction. It's a great idea, Tracy.
Maybe there needs to be a tubular ratings point, like a Nielsen score or something like that. What about a tubular score? Does the industry use something like that?
Well, we have an influencer score that is actually for YouTube, that takes into account a variety of things: how influential your audience is, your views per video, your growth. But we also do have the audience ratings has a percent share. The 34% of females 18 to 24, that in a given month the Ellen digital reaches. So we have shares, and we just want people to understand, where the audiences are, how engaged they are. We have video ratings that have a measure of engagement. So ERs above 1, like 2 or 3, means a video has 2 or 3 times the social engagement, likes, comments, and shares of a typical video in that month on that platform. So we do have some of those.
I do pop on your free platform from time to time to look, but I keep thinking, where's my name? Okay. I have 2 more questions. One is, are you seeing a growth in interest in cooking networks? Because everybody's talking about bread, right? And sourdough. Yeah. That's just crazy. Maybe that's just a passing observation. Where are you putting your money in terms of investment? What's happening in the future?
For Tubular? Right, thank you. Yeah, our roadmap is better ratings, and continue to standardize and organize more of it. So in beta, we have tubular audience ratings. These are people and time-based metrics, very similar to media metrics or TV, but applied to the world of video globally. Those are just, so that if I'm reaching 100 million uniques, what percentage of those are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, what's my overlap, how many people are watching. So it's at creators, and then next will be categories. So did 200 million people globally watch soccer content last month, or was it a billion people? Did they watch for 50 minutes or 500 minutes? And then how do I intersect with that and get those ideas? To do that, especially at the soccer level, we have to have the increased classifications and taxonomy. So that's where a lot of our AI, that's where our engineering work is going. We will be announcing enhancement to our reporting center and alerts, and just kind of making it easier to access that information. Those are the main drives this year. You know, sourdough viewership has risen, Tracy. I've looked here.
I don't even know why, because it's such a waste of flour. Oh my God, let's see this.
So here we have. So
oh my God, look at this.
This is looking back about a year, right? And so there was about 1 million views a month or something a week. This is weekly.
Amazing.
And then yeah, there's been a big boom in sourdough videos. And in fact, let's see, the top 5 videos.
I bet you. What?
Claire makes sourdough crepes was the #1 video for the first week of the shut-in. And here our AI assigns us to crepe and pancakes and waffles, which is obviously breakfast, which is a meal. So if you understand food and drink broken down by breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're doing that for you. And we spoke about engagement ratings. This video had 2.4 times the likes and shares you'd expect on a per view basis. So yeah, it looks like, and then from a platform perspective, it was popular on all of them. So YouTube, Facebook, Twitter has been rising, and then the creators, Tasty, this is a BuzzFeed property. Twisted is a Jungle Creations property. They're a customer of Tubular. And then Split, surprisingly, this is on YouTube, 60% of the sourdough audience were men. And quite popular.
I do see a lot of male bakers doing this. I do see that. It's strange.
Yeah. So that's, that's a way to look at one of the ways that we help people get some insight into what's going on here. And I'd share that with you.
All right, well, thank you very much. That was very insightful. I appreciate that. The other topics would be like people are drinking on Mondays and searching for yeast, but we could go through all the various sort of viral terms.
Yeah, those kinds of things.
But
that's a pretty good use case of a lot of our best customers, when they have an idea, let's go make a series about dance challenges or about vegan cooking or about raw food. A lot of them just, hey, what does Tubular say? Is this big already? Are people doing it? Is it big enough to support a series? And if they do green light the series based on some of what they're seeing in Tubular plus their ideas, then you can take that data with you into market to get sponsors, right? So look, dance challenges is a big and growing category, and Beach should sponsor our show. That's a real use case we had. Or vegan food is big and growing. So that's the thing, is it's in TV, you can kind of keep it all together in your head of like who makes news and what are the various sort of formats. But the world is so complicated and it's so global now that people use Tubular to dig into those. So sourdough looks a little niche. I don't know that I'd recommend a whole series based on sourdough, but it does look like companies like Tasty have taken advantage of the sourdough trend and made some hit videos out of it.
I would say home baking and showing that you can make bread and knishes. I just made knishes yesterday. I mean, everybody, I see a lot of that. Maybe that's just our house because we do make our own food.
Anything
all the time.
When the shut-in happened, any video with the word home in it, I think, was performing, overnight almost twice as good as it did before, whether it was home fitness or home cooking or home workouts, and it just kind of makes sense. So,
how about hunting for toilet paper? Okay.
Well,
I think those are all my questions, unless I didn't touch on something that you think people should know.
I don't know. Zach, did we miss anything? Is he there still? We may have lost Zach. No, it was good. I mean, look, we're just trying to be helpful. Thanks for helping, get the word out. We really are trying to help everyone through these times. I believe information. Look, it's very clear that with COVID, knowing how many people have it and what geo and the cases and statistics are leading the day and are giving people strategies to battle COVID. This is a lot less life or death, but you can look at similar data to get strategies to succeed and thrive in social video, whether you're a programming team, a sales team, or an ad investment team. And I just, again, as I believe that data and insights properly standardized help everyone be smarter, everyone be more efficient, leads to sort of a better world. So to the extent that we can help and play a small part, that's something that we're looking to do.
One question I didn't ask, and I have to edit this, is, are you seeing a rise in content being uploaded to YouTube, you think, as a result of being home more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. So surprisingly, the media companies were still uploading at the same pace as before. So even to social video. So even though it was challenging to make new shows, shows are still coming out that had been canned before, and they just found ways around it, like Saturday Night Live and the late night hosts we've been talking about. So their cadence did not shut down, and it actually grew from influencers. So yeah, there's just as many as before.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I just mean average people as well. Are people using the platform more? Are they becoming influencers or creators? I mean, they're not quite up at the level of a PewDiePie, but I mean, people are finding ways to get on YouTube perhaps more than ever before.
Yeah. Again, I think it has. It's increased. It's already so big. 3 billion people watching and 16 million significant creators. It's kind of hard for it to double or triple, but it's definitely growing more than it was before. You mentioned home. This is literally just videos with the word home in it. Very consistent, right? This is daily, but we could that 100 million views a month, a day, 100 million views a day, 150 million views a day on YouTube, and then the world changes, right? And suddenly there's a lot of interest in home. Now it's starting to fade. This is what I mean by kind of coming back to the norm. YouTube hasn't elevated. That hasn't quite, I guess it's starting to fade in the last couple of days. And
what's the blue? What's that blue line at the top?
That's Facebook is the dark blue. Red is YouTube. Brown is Instagram. Light blue is Twitch. Or light blue is Twitter. Twitter here. And videos can range from all of this, but we broke it down for people, or our platform does, in terms of by category, by platform. So, most views to home content have been on Facebook. This is platform defined views, of course. They define them a little bit differently on each of the platforms, but it's happening on all of the platforms. This is our new AI driven classification system. So home, videos with the word home in the title, right? Or about home, they break down into fitness, food and drink, music, pop culture, beauty. So Benefit Cosmetics would come into Tubular and explore beauty videos about home, or and Peloton would look into health and fitness videos about home, or food and drink videos about home, which is what you kind of brought out. When you look at sort of the views per video, 19,000 views on average in the first 3 days. Toys is doing quite well, pop culture. So yeah, this is sort of a breakdown of the food and drink category, whether it's desserts and drinks. And so exploring this and getting into the individual videos helps understand what's working, helps understand if there's pockets of performance. Online food services, there's not a lot of videos about that, but they're performing quite well. So you can explore all those things and kind of understand when things are starting to fade too, though. Again, it's starting to fade at this point. So I wouldn't really be launching new initiatives around home unless I thought I had some sort of competitive advantage there going forward. But I'd still participate and just kind of monitor the performance there and look for other topics that are starting to rise.
So much to learn. You could just spend your whole day just studying all of these statistics and just thinking about. I don't know if you're familiar with a philosopher named Michel Foucault. He's not alive anymore, but he was very interested in tracking and how people measure themselves as a way of understanding who they were what the culture was like. I highly recommend checking him out if you.
And we'll check him out.
Philosophy.
How do I spell his last name?
Foucault. He's French.
Oh, Foucault. Right. All right. I will check that out. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you. He was very interested in the technology of surveillance in terms of understanding world culture. Anyway, thank you very, very much.
Okay, good. Well, there's some in here you can put together and make interesting for people. I don't do a whole lot of these, but I'm doing more of them. I'm enjoying them, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. We will contact you about our virtual event that's going to be coming out later this summer. So stay tuned for that. And I really appreciate your sharing your life with us and your platform and your expertise. So
thank you. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Right, well, that is
just reach out and we'll try to give you the data or the reports that we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Televisionation.
Yeah. Yay. This is Tracy Swedlow of Televisionation, and that's Rob Gabel, CEO, co-founder, or now you're the only founder?
Allison and I are still in touch.
Okay.
She's got some really cool projects in the works that people will be hearing about, in a little while.
All right. Interesting. I know she just got married.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the gossip, all the industry gossip. Thank you so very much, Rob. We'll talk to you soon another time.
Thank you, Tracy.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.